This is Richard Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs Power Hour. It is Monday, July 9th. Good afternoon, Chiefs Nation. It's a great way to start the week. It's Monday. We have a busy week ahead of us. We have some pretty decent news for Chiefs Nation this week. July is kind of a somber month in the NFL, but there's a lot to talk about today. But first, I want to take a quick second to give a birthday shout out to Bill Shekels from Louisville, Kentucky, a Chiefs fan. His birthday today. I also want to give a shout out to Phil Smith and Shelby Smith. Chiefs Nation finds it really important to keep our fans in mind and our community in mind. So I find it's really important that we give these birthday shout outs. So if you would like one, just PM me, contact me. I'm easy to get a hold of. And we'll do a birthday shout out for you. So the NFL released the Elite or Super 50 list. It's been described two different ways. And number 35 on that list is Eric Berry. I figure he should be a little bit further up in that list, but I can't complain. I'm happy to see him there. Travis Kelce is sitting at 36. That's a really, really good spot for him too. I'm just happy to see both of them in the top 50. As Chiefs fans, we obviously want to see him further up in the list, and there's a lot of question marks in the top 50, to be honest with you. We look at, and these are players that are ranked above, our own Kansas City Chiefs. Ranked at 29 is Ezekiel Elliott. Huge question marks there. Huge question marks. Just in the Cowboys organization alone, you have question marks left and right. They're hardly consistent, and I just don't see Ezekiel Elliott breaking the top 50. Another one would be another running back in David Johnson, hit 25 from Arizona. Don't get me wrong, he's fast. He's a good running back. He's got good stats, but it kind of reflects the team he plays on as well. You can't really throw David Johnson at 25 when, overall the team is just, let's say, below subpar. And moving on, Odell Beckham Jr. at 19. I find that to be a little bit low of a rank for him. But also, like I said about David Johnson and the team he plays on, look who Odell has throwing to him. He's got a really shaky Eli Manning, who's at the end of his career. It's really time for the Giants to be looking towards the future. So, I look at Odell Beckham. If he had a better quarterback, he'd probably be ranked a little bit higher. And then there's two more that are just huge question marks to me. I like the names, but the fact that neither of these players can stay healthy, they've got the stats. They've done good over the years. They've played on good teams. And that's number 15, Luke Kuechly. He just can't stay healthy. Injury plagued. He's a warrior, but when you play like a warrior and you give up your body for plays, it starts to take a toll on you. And that kind of brings me into number 12 and Gronk. Come on now. Okay, I know he had a 1,000-yard receiving year last year, which he's made a comeback. He was injured the year before, didn't play too much. But the man just cannot stay healthy. If you look at his career stats, they're great. They're great. And I'll touch base on that a little bit later because we're going to compare Travis Kelce to Gronk himself. But I want to touch base on, the top 10 of the Elite 50, which I really agree with it, besides two players. Number 10, sitting with Von Miller. I don't really think that he's a top 10 Elite 50 player. He's a great player. We see him a lot over the years in the AFC West, with the Chiefs and Denver being in the same division, but I can't see him breaking the top 10 anymore. Maybe 5 years ago. Todd Gurley sitting at 9. That's perfect. That man is an animal. If you watch this guy's video, he is every bit as dynamic as our very own running back that we have. And you can't knock a player who has the skill set that Todd Gurley does. Marcus Peters is sitting at number 8. We all know what he can do. We can't argue with that. Number 7 is Chandler Jones from Arizona, defensive tackle. He's a great player. I won't argue with that. Number 6, Julio Jones. Number 5, Aaron Donald, defensive tackle from the Rams. That's a good spot for him. Number 4, huge question mark for me, J.J. Watt. Lots of injuries. I look at the Texans as an organization, and I think if 4 or 5 years ago they would have looked to trade him and bring in, a number of impact players off of one name, that would have been a great move for the Texans. They held on to him. He's had a lot of injuries. He's been a solid player. He is a franchise player. But I think they could have got more back from a trade, out of J.J. Watt. So I can't really put him at number 4. I don't even really put him as cracking the top 10 anymore. Number 3 is Antonio Brown. I completely agree with that. Number 2 is Rodgers. You can't argue with Aaron Rodgers. He typically doesn't even have receivers around him, and he's putting up top passing yards, each year, each season. So really, I don't want to hear any arguments from Rodgers. There isn't any. He's elite. And number 1, we all know who number 1 is, and we can't argue that, Tom Brady. The guy has just been consistent. Him and Belichick have had a great system over the years. You kind of see it deteriorating a little bit, but that just comes with age and, vision and, coaches, players, organizations going in separate ways, and that's bound to happen. We'll just see who holds more value to New England here in the next few years. So, enough about other teams. This is the Kansas City Chiefs kingdom. We talk about all things Kansas City. So, let's get to the NFL Top 100. We have 3 players in it, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, and Travis Kelce. If some of our defense would have stayed healthy last year, I feel like we would have had more crack in the top 100. But I can't argue with that. Those are 3 great players. I think Alex Smith should have cracked the top 100, especially for having the best career year of his life. So, and those stats are shaky, questionable every single year. A lot of things go into it. A lot of things go into it that shouldn't. But that's just one of those things with the NFL, and especially as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, we expect our team and our players to be ranked a little bit lower. So, we talked about, Gronk and Kelce already. And let's do the comparison. Let's do the comparison because that's talked about quite a bit. And I look at Kelce and I look at what he's consistently doing. And I look at Gronk about what he is not consistently doing. Gronk is injury prone. Kelce is just a beast, stays on the field. Even during concussion protocol, if Kelce could be on the field, he would. Get that game against Tennessee last year. I really don't want to touch base on that, but we all know he would have been out there if he could. But, last year, Kelce led all tight ends with targets and yards after catch. He had 83 receptions with 1,038 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Kelce has 2,000-yard receiving years in a row. And, he's looking for a third. And if he breaks that third, only him and Greg Olsen have done that. And I just look at the impact that Kelce has on our team compared to the impact that Gronk has on his team. We can't win without Kelce. Brady can win without Gronk. So really, who's more of an asset to the team? It's one of those things that Kelce just, man, his presence on the field, everything that he represents, for our team, for our city. There's no question marks. Early on, he had a little bit of growing up to do, but who doesn't? Gronk was the same way. So I can't really, say anything about the progression as a person in general. But, we just keep holding on to this Gronkowski thing as NFL fans. But you just look at Gronk last year really didn't have a bad year. 69 receptions, 1,084 yards, 8 touchdowns. And we're also talking about a man who had 17 touchdowns in 2011. That is ridiculous. With double-digit receiving touchdowns in 5 separate seasons, 4,000-yard receiving seasons. But you also have to look at, the huge fact of everything. The man has Tom Brady as his quarterback. Okay? Kelsey had Smith and Castle. I mean, what comparison is that? There's really not much one, going from elite, to possibly franchise quarterback to below subpar and Matt Castle. But here's the deal. Gronk is in an organization that is nearing its end of its prime. Okay? Kelsey is in an organization that is in the beginning of its prime. And Kelsey, I would have to say, is probably just now getting to the peak of his game. And he's got some really, really solid years left in him. And I don't really say that for Gronkowski. I think Gronk's at the end of his career. I think once, Brady and Belichick ride on out into the sunset, I think Gronk follows. You can only beat your body up for so many years before you have to understand that physically you just can't do it anymore. And as anybody who's getting older in age, you have to start looking into the future and realizing that there's more after football. So I really see Gronk kind of fading out here in the next few years, but I still think he'll be productive. So with that aspect, Kelsey is a better all-around player than Gronkowski right now. And it is an argument, and I can see the argument. But as a Chiefs fan and as us in Chiefs Nation, we support our team. But there isn't anybody out there who wouldn't put up that argument. So let's look at the years to come, and we'll see what Kelsey does, and then we can make this comparison in 3 years. And I would love to say, and I am going to say, that it isn't a comparison anymore. So let's go Kansas City Chiefs. Let's go Chiefs Nation. Travis Kelce, we're all behind you. You are definitely the best tight end in the league, and we are happy to have you on our team. So let's go ahead and move on to the supplemental draft, which goes on this Wednesday. It's not televised. They don't really make too big of a deal out of it. And for all of you that are kind of questioning what the supplemental draft is, because it's not really talked about very much. There hasn't been a player come out of the supplemental draft since 2015. We don't really hear about it too much because the supplemental draft is a means by which underclassmen who become ineligible for the college football season after the deadline to enter the NFL's regular draft can enter the league. The supplemental draft is held after the regular draft. It's one of those things that it's a chance for the players that didn't get a chance to be in the draft, due to possible college violations, due to transferring to a different school, due to not getting your paperwork in time to enter, the regular draft of the NFL. I think it's one of those things that as organizations, you look at the supplemental draft as giving somebody a chance. That's going out there and seeing what's left and seeing what talent there is and, putting somebody on your roster and just letting them go for it. I look at it as one of those things that it's usually a splash in the pan. And that's why a player hasn't come out of the supplemental draft since 2015. But there are 5 players in the supplemental draft that have, big-time implications of actually making it in the NFL. And as a matter of fact, the Kansas City Chiefs are, really, really hardcore looking at one of these players. And it's Sam Beal from Western Michigan. And this guy is so good that all teams were represented in Sam's pro day. And that's a huge deal. And the Chiefs were one of 4 teams to personally speak with Beal. So to me, that tells Chiefs Nation that we're highly interested in this guy. And, you look at the highlights from him, he's great on one-on-one coverage. He's great in the slot. This guy is a shut-down corner. I mean, he really, really is. All the plays that you see him make. And, he comes from Western Michigan. But I'm talking, when you look at the highlights, these are highlights against teams like USC. There's some other like little Division II schools, smaller schools, but he has some big time highlights against some big time universities, and he's just an animal. And I firmly believe that we need Sam Beal. This is a guy that can make an immediate impact on our team, and with what our defense is looking like and our secondary, I'm really concerned about Amerson. But if we bring in a guy like Sam Beal, this guy, he's great on one-on-one. You can put him out there by himself with no safety help, and he'll shut it down. Those deep routes, he stays with the receivers foot for foot. He's always in between the receiver and the ball. You see that on every single play. This guy has got instinct. He knows what he's doing out there, and I feel like he can be an impact on an NFL squad. So I think it would be really important for the Chiefs to get the sleeper pick and go out and get him cheap. That's what Brett Veach has been really good at, is getting this young talent. We get him in their rookie contracts. We get him to stick around. They know that this is a team aspect. We want to win a Super Bowl. And it's not about money. It's not about personal stats. So I think with that being said, and the locker room that we have and the mentality that our Chiefs as an organization has, that Sam Beal is the perfect fit for Kansas City Chiefs. The community that we have will back him 100%, and a player like that needs it. You come out of supplemental draft, you need the city behind you. So I think if we make the right moves and we make the right decisions, and Big Red goes at this and talks to Sam and kind of gives him, a rundown of what we're looking to do, I can't see us not picking him up. It just depends on what the other three teams, who personally spoke to him, which I'm not quite sure who they were. I just know the Chiefs were one of them. But, the Chiefs obviously have a knack of, edging out the competition when it comes to these great picks and trades and everything that we've done as an organization. And also, this is a great point too. 78% of Chiefs Nation would love to see the Chiefs make a selection in the supplemental draft. And I don't think that, with how I look at our organization and us as a city in a whole, that's who we are. That's who we are as people. That's who Kansas City is. The supplemental draft represents everything that is Chiefs Nation. And I think it would be a great deal for us to go out and, give this guy a chance. And there's 4 more guys, and there's another guy that we're really looking at too. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to touch base on all those names and stats and stuff like that, because Sam Beal is really the one that we want. And I think that if we just, take a stab in the dark and just see what we can get out of him. That's not, it's not, we won't lose anything. Maybe we can cut, an Amerson. No, I can't say it. Maybe we can cut a Steven Nelson, let's make room, for a Sam Beal. Let's get rid of Nelson. Let's really, really, really see, what we can do in the supplemental draft. Let's make it work for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, here's my thing is, I don't doubt anything that our front office is doing. So Chiefs Nation, if you hear us pick a player up in the supplemental draft, don't frown on it. Look at the Tyreek Hills. Look at it, look at the players that Kareem Hunt, that we pick up kind of lower in the draft that has just blown up. Trust our front office. Let's go get something out of the supplemental draft. Let's get a couple players. Let's shock the NFL world, and let's produce, some top players, from the overlooked class of 2018 or 17. I'm sorry. So, Chiefs Nation, this was, a podcast about the supplemental draft. This was a podcast about the top 50, the top 100, what our team is looking like. And I really enjoyed this broadcast. I look for the Chiefs to have a busy week this week. My next podcast, I hope I'm sitting here saying that we went ahead and signed Beal. Look, I hope Y'all have a great week, Chiefs Nation. Let's get excited. This is a great time in Chiefs history. So this is Richard Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs Power Hour. Thank you for joining me. Kansas City, I love you. Let's go get a Super Bowl. Hey, Chiefs Nation, bleed KC. I love y'all. I will talk to you on the next broadcast.